Hello and welcome to the Gaggle Mobile Challenge, and if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of the Gaggle, Peter Lavelle. So, Peter, the United Kingdom is fast becoming a police state under the premiership of Keir Starmer, whose name is somehow appropriate to a police state.
Yes, with a name like that, you know that the jackboots are welcome.
Exactly. And so everything started with this stabbing murder of these three little girls, and then the riots followed, and then Starmer, as we talked about in a couple of previous podcasts, launched into this tirade against the rioters, and then essentially, encouraged the police to just go all out, arresting everybody, including online influencers. And now this is a part of what the British government is doing, which is cracking down on people who merely maintain a presence online. So it's not like, oh, he threw a brick and so you go to prison. No, it's you go to prison for your postings on Facebook or on Twitter, and the police are of course very eager to continue to conduct this. And what's also extraordinary is the speed with which these things are handled. In other words, people getting arrested and they're hauled into court the next day, and then they're immediately sent to prison for 3 years. And you think, well, normally these things should take a little bit longer. You're arrested, there's an arraignment, you have time to talk to an attorney, get the benefit of legal counsel. Then you work out a plea with the prosecutors, get that accepted by the judge. There's a whole process. When this happens just in a matter of hours, then you think that these people are not getting the benefits of due process, which is surely a part of democracy and our values. And needless to say, the media are, of course, very, very keen on this and are clapping their hands with glee, because, of course, what this means is a crackdown on alternative media, which, of course, the mainstream media are extremely happy about. So let me just show you a few recent articles on this. And here we have, here's a headline, typical headline you get these days. Specialist police hunt social media influencers who incited riots online. So no, these are not people who actually were rioting. They are social media influencers, and they apparently incited. Who decides what incites a riot?
Well, who determines what a media influencer is?
Yeah,
Too?
I have no idea what that is.
I don't know how you determine that. And what does incitement here mean?
Exactly.
And what does riots mean here?
Exactly. Exactly right. Exactly. But what's interesting about that, I mean, you raise excellent questions, that the media don't ask any of those questions, which is exactly what you think the media should be doing, asking just that. What's a social media influencer? What's a riot? What is an incitement to a riot? And says, teams working for regional organized crime units investigating hundreds of leads after trawling through posts. So imagine that they're going through trawling posts, and then the social media influencers who incited riots online are being hunted by specialist police. They're being hunted down. So they're going through all.
I mean, is this? You mean the Stasi police?
The Stasi. That's right. They're going through all of your postings. They're going through all sorts of postings on Facebook, Twitter, and determining what is an incitement. Teams working for regional organized crime units are investigating hundreds of leads after trawling through social media posts suspected of inciting far-right rioting by spreading hate and inciting violence. So,
well, trawling used to be a negative thing. Okay, now the state does.
That's right, yeah, except when the state does it. But again, notice it's always the far right rioting. Whenever you've had minorities rioting, you don't get a response like this. This is what is meant by two-tier policing. They're only doing this because it's far right. But whenever you've had any number of times when the riots involved minorities, there was none of this kind of a response.
It's very interesting that this slide ends with spreading hate and inciting violence. Now, again, there's a very traditional definition, I think, a consensus definition of inciting violence, like let's go lynch him,
right?
Throw a brick at someone,
right?
Having the means to inflict bodily harm by saying,
right.
let's get him. Okay,
right.
I think that's consensus.
That's
okay,
right. That's right.
But spreading hate.
Yep. That's right. Exactly.
What does that mean?
Exactly. None of these things, none of these things are ever defined because they say, "Oh, this is hate speech," and that's always been the problem. Whenever this term hate speech or hate crime, how do you define this? I mean, what exactly is hate?
Okay, and if I say Nikki Haley is a war pig with lipstick, is that
hate? That counts as hate. Yes.
No, it's not. It's a description.
I think so, but they could easily count that as hate, and they could say that's incitement to violence. And then officers from the serious and organized crime teams are working with counter-terror police. Oh, that's good. Counter-terror police. Oh, good. And other national agencies to review content across a range of social media sites.
Yeah, well, maybe they should do something different. Like, why don't they do a review of immigration policy for the last
exactly.
40 years?
That's okay? Right. That's exactly right. And that's the thing. This is a wonderful way of not addressing any of the fundamental issues. Notice, everyone's already forgotten about the murder of those 3 little girls. That's all been, forgotten. I mean, it's just ancient history. And incidentally, the stabber, he stabbed a number of people. It's just that those 3 were the ones who died. There were others that he had seriously injured. And nobody's even curious as to his motives. Why did he do this? How did he end up here in Southport? He's supposed to have been lived in Cardiff. Why was he here? Why did he choose this place to attack these girls? That's all gone. We're just talking about far right violence. So we had this mass murder here, but that's not important. Instead, we're focusing on that, and of course, we're not focusing on the actual grievance, what led to these riots. The National Police Chiefs Council said officers would work together to build a clear intelligence picture of those believed to be organizing and influencing violence, both online and in the real world. How do you organize and influence violence when you're online? I mean, it's again just baffling. I mean, if you're not involved in violence, I don't. What does that even mean? And in the real world, well, it makes it. These are 2 quite different things, but they want to suggest that, well, they're just the same thing. Content will be assessed by a senior investigator to determine whether it meets the criminal threshold, and offenders will then be identified, arrested, and charged.
What is the criminal threshold?
They don't define it. Again, they will determine what it is. Chief Constable Chris Howard, the National Police Chiefs Council lead for serious and organized crime, said, "Let me be clear, inciting violence and encouraging mass disorder are incredibly serious offenses."
Wow. I mean, this is the head of the organized crime unit.
Right.
Okay. All right. Now they're putting their resources into trolling people that are angry.
Right. But also saying incredibly serious offenses. Well, I don't know. I mean, why encouraging mass disorder? Somebody could be encouraging protests. Why is that an incredibly serious offense? Again, this is supposed to be a democracy, values where protest is legal. Demonstrations are legal. But this abhorrent activity didn't happen by itself. Large crowds and gatherings didn't mobilize spontaneously. It was the result of dozens of so-called influencers exploiting the outpouring of grief from the tragic loss of 3 young girls in Southport. They knowingly spread misinformation, stoked the flames of hatred and division, and incited violence from the comfort of their own homes, causing chaos on the people's doorstep. Now, first of all, he says they knowingly spread misinformation. How do you know this? What's the basis of saying they knowingly? I mean, people may have got things wrong. People often get things wrong, inadequate information. But how do you know they knowingly spread misinformation?
Yeah, well, let's take a look at that paragraph. They knowingly spread misinformation, stoked the flames of hatred and division, and incited violence from the comfort of their own homes, causing chaos on other people's doorstep. Well, that's what the British government has been doing for 40 years.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Causing chaos and forcing other people to live with the
Yes,
consequent chaos. Yeah.
from the comfort of their own homes.
From the comfort of their own homes in the salubrious areas of London that they inhabit and where they don't have to live with the consequences of their actions. The wife of Tory councillor has been charged after calling for hotels housing migrants to be set on fire. Now, in a post on X, formerly Twitter, last Monday, Lucy Connolly wrote, mass deportations now, set fire to all the effing hotels full of the, I assume it, bastards, for all I care. While you're at it, take the treacherous government and politicians with them. Now, that doesn't sound to me like she's actually calling for setting them on fire. She says, for all I care. Probably shouldn't have posted that, but nonetheless, it's not the same as saying calling for setting fire on them. She's just getting but that's what then boom, now you're sending her to prison. So anyway, she appeared before Northampton magistrates via video link on Saturday, charged with publishing written material to stir up racial hatred, and was remanded in custody until her next appearance. So now, this isn't really stirring up racial hatred. I mean, she's very upset about what happened to those children. So I mean, to say she's basically saying, okay, well, we brought all these people in, mass deportation now. Because you've got all these illegals, and the government is unwilling to do anything about this mass illegal presence in the UK. It's not really racial hatred. Again, it's a misuse of terms. Again, probably shouldn't have sent out that tweet, but to say that this is stirring up racial hatred is simply wrong.
She quickly deleted it as well.
Right.
Because of a moment of passion. Okay.
Exactly.
Look, should we be criminalizing stupid speech?
That's right. Exactly. People say that's the whole point.
People say stupid things all the time.
People say things, particularly when people get emotional and they say stupid things. But that's the point.
But is that criminal?
Exactly. Is that criminal and punishment by prison?
Well, look, the fact that this article is bringing up Lucy Conley, okay, as far as I am concerned, given the high profile nature that she is presented in this article, she's massively already been punished by public opinion. Okay,
that's right.
She's gotten what she deserved for saying outrageously stupid observations. Okay.
Right.
I personally think you're just a dumb broad, okay? But I don't.
Yeah, that's the point. So people say stupid things. People get things wrong. They get wrong information. They put out wrong information. Since when has that been a crime? That's why you have free speech. You are free to be wrong.
Yep.
You're free to say stupid things. Yeah. And then it says, on Saturday, Cheshire police said a 55-year-old woman had been bailed following her arrest in relation to a social media post containing inaccurate information about the identity of the suspect in the Southport killings. So she's been arrested because she put out inaccurate information. Well, that's a crime, again, 55-year-old woman, that's a crime.
This is not contextualized. I mean, there were people that put out, look, governments and states put out misinformation all the time.
Yeah, that much more
all the time.
exactly.
Okay?
Yeah, with much more serious
And I
consequences.
would much more serious, and I would say by design. Okay.
Yes.
Now, this woman here, did she just retweet, or is what she heard at the time?
Exactly.
Are you holding her account for information that someone else generated? Or are you telling us that this 55-year-old woman, she was there at the scene of the crime and saw the crime itself and the result? Well, we don't know if that's true or not. Okay.
Right. But what you said,
at the very most, she was mistaken.
That's right. And what you said is absolutely right, because now what they're criminalizing retweeting. It's not just, you put out inaccurate information. If you retweet inaccurate information, you are liable to arrest. This is how drastic this has become.
This is such a wet dream for the government.
Absolutely.
These are the people that regret the end of COVID, everyone.
That's right. Exactly. And Starmer, needless to say, was a big COVID man, big lockdown man, and a big vaccine man. No surprise there. He was a real enthusiast for lockdowns. Thought that lockdowns were not severe enough. And the vaxxers, he was a big vaxxer. Foreign states. Oh, you're always waiting for this one. Foreign states amplifying disinformation, fueling riots, says Starmer. Obergruppenführer SS Starmer. Russian-linked online sites. Ah, good. You're always waiting. Well, thank God the Russians are here. Russian-linked online sites and far-right activists are among those accused of inflaming protests on social media. So now you've got everyone together. The whole gang is together. We've got the Russian social media, the far right. All you need is Trump, and then you've got the whole.
This is kind of my stock reaction to these kinds of claims. So the Russians whipped up racial tensions in America, right, during the last.
That's right.
Election. Well, you don't need a foreign government to whip up racial tensions in America. Okay, the Democratic Party does really well at that. Okay, as far as tensions over immigration in the UK, you don't need a foreign power to mix it up. Okay,
I don't think
already there. Okay,
it's
just again, and this is our overarching theme in talking about this, is that you don't want to look at what the governments, Labor and Tory, what they've done wrong when it comes to immigration. It's always an issue. It's very important. We have to deal. We've been hearing this for 40 years.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
And now it's all coming to an head. Okay.
Right.
But no, it was somebody else to do it. We're not responsible. We have done nothing.
That's right. That's right. And so you're already getting who the villains are. Obviously, the foreign states. We know who that is. The far right, and the new villain who's emerged on the scene, which is Elon Musk. And the government is really now targeting Elon Musk because he's still sticking to his principle of allowing Twitter to be a free speech platform. And this is just enraging the government. And clearly there are moves within the Labour Party to outlaw Twitter in the UK altogether.
The problem is, George, that British governments, American administrations, the EU, they all welcome social media. This was a wonderful opportunity for them to control everybody. Yes. And then you have this guy, Musk, shows up. They never saw him coming. And who in the world would pay so much money for that? Anyway, and this is Musk does a lot of weird. I don't know how he runs his businesses. I mean, he seems to be talking about Venezuela. He's talking about what's going on in the Middle East. Now he's concerned with race riots. A multitasking guy, I guess. Okay.
Yeah, I'm also puzzled about that. How does he run his businesses? I mean, but he seems to spend a lot of time on Twitter.
So, but this is the problem: is that social media was supposed to be the panacea of the establishment.
Right.
And it hasn't worked out that way. And this is what enrages them.
You're absolutely right. Because I remember when in 2011, no, 2008 rather, when Obama came to power, then social media was all the rage. Hey, this is wonderful. The social media, it's now getting us this wonderful man, Obama. Had it not been for social media, we wouldn't have got Obama. And then 2011 was the year of the Arab Spring. Oh, fantastic! Social media, Arab Spring. But then
And 2016 happened.
exactly 2016. Whoa, this doesn't.
Oh, Brexit, Trump.
Exactly. Suddenly, hey, we need to crack down on social media. We can't allow people to be expressing their views. So now social media have become the enemy. But there was a moment before Musk took over when social media, well, they were really just throwing people off. I mean, during the COVID. Yeah, yeah, that's right. It was, I mean, they took down the president of the United States. The incumbent president of the United States was taken off. And they were taking down university professors at Stanford, like Jay Bhattacharya. I mean, all sorts of eminent figures, because they weren't buying into the whole COVID hysteria. And that was just a perfect, hey, we've got the social media. And then who'd have thunk that Musk would come along? And that's really just put a fly in the ointment, and they're putting threats against Musk, and those could get worked out. I mean, they keep threatening him.
I have a pretty good idea how it's going to work out, as George has pointed out numerous times. Elon Musk is a recipient of corporate welfare, and so he is vulnerable. He is vulnerable.
I think so. And so Russia-linked online sites and far-right activists are among those accused of inflaming protests on social media.
Are Russian-linked online sites banned in the UK?
I don't think. Well, I don't know. Are they banned? Are they all of them? I think.
Well, I mean, RT is, Sputnik
well,
is.
RT is, and I think like RIA Novosti, I think that's banned as well. But this is Russia-linked, which is a little difficult to know exactly what that means.
Oh, well, that will remain vague.
That will remain. Foreign state actors are amplifying online disinformation that has led to the riots across Britain, Downing Street has said. Russia-linked online sites of far-right activists are among those accused of fueling protests on social media, as Sir Keir Starmer warned that anyone whipping up violence online will face the full force of the law. So whipping up, whip up.
Looking at those two paragraphs, you know what image came into my head? Goebbels.
Yes, I agree.
Yes. Germany is foreign outside forces are threatening the tranquility of the German people, and all. That's what it sounds like.
That's right. The tranquility of our people. That everything is so peaceful. Whipping up violence online. What the hell does that mean? In other words, you just make that decision of what that is. And of course, because the defendants in this case are all very, very poor. These are people who cannot afford attorneys. So they're the easiest people to coerce into pleading guilty. I mean, you go there, you've got nothing. You don't have a lawyer who's going to be going to bat for you. You plead guilty because they say, hey, we convict you. You're going down for 10 years. You plead guilty. We'll only give you 3 years, and you get a year off for good behavior.
But the prosecution, backed by the government, encouraged by the government, they get such satisfaction out of crushing weak people.
Exactly.
Love to crush the weakest of society.
And that's who Starmer is. That's the essence.
But that's the whole paradigm for the Western world right now.
I agree. Exactly. That's exactly what they did to the January 6 people, all of whom were people with very limited means, and they knew that they could coerce them because they knew that they really didn't have any means to fight prosecution.
And they were so damn stupid they forgot to bring their guns.
That's right. The armed insurrection. The National Crime Agency is notice all these bureaucratic entities. One didn't even know that they existed. The National Crime Agency
do exist, George.
That's right. Yeah, they just create these entities. Is investigating whether bots linked to hostile states are responsible for promoting misinformation, the Prime Minister's official spokesman said. The riot started after the murder of 3 young girls at a Taylor Swift dance concert in Southport last month. So that's just a minor thing, you know, forget that. Just the murder of 3 young girls, that's it. Channel 3 Now, which purports to be a legitimate American news outlet but acts as an aggregator for fake news, wrongly named the attacker as Ali al-Shakati, claiming he was a Muslim man who had recently arrived in the country. The claim was then promoted by thousands of Russia-linked accounts before being repeated by Russian state media. Now,
have you ever heard of Channel 3 Now?
I've never heard of Channel 3 Now, and I didn't know that Russian state media repeated this. I don't remember. I mean, I looked at RT News, and I don't remember they're repeating this on RT. But again, Channel 3 Now, it's like that other thing that the EU banned. I forgot they said this, you know, I don't know. I remember, oh, this is a Russia-linked news site and whatever. But again, no one had ever heard of it. They just make these things up. They invent these things and they say, oh, this is Russia-linked. And who watches this? I mean, it's like, oh, this was repeated on Channel 3 Now. So there are people in Southport or in Bradford, or oh, well, you know, this is where they get their news from. Oh, Channel 3. That's the one you need to go to. That's where you get the real news.
How many people in the UK watch American news outlets? I suppose some.
I would think very, very limited number. I doubt whether the people in Southport or in Bradford or Leicester are sitting there watching. I mean, if they're watching American news outlet, you know, I'd have thought it's more probably CNN or whatever. They probably wouldn't be doing it. I mean, I doubt it. But I don't know, where would they get this idea for this Channel 3 Now? I mean, it's like,
but why would you go to Channel 3 Now, which I've never heard of, to find out about what happened in your local community?
That's a tough one. Yeah, why would you? I mean, exactly. I mean, if you want to know what's going on in your local community, you would find out from locals and where the locals are and where they're posting and whatever. I doubt whether you get it from Channel 3 Now. I think this is just made up. They made this up. They created this thing. Oh, this Channel 3 Now. Oh, and it's Russia linked, so therefore Putin. You know, and you know, it all hangs together.
For a certain worldview, yeah. Okay.
Exactly. Asked whether foreign states were behind the spread of disinformation online, so Keir's official spokesman said, clearly we have seen bot activity online, much of which may well be amplified with the involvement of state actors, amplifying some of the disinformation and misinformation that we've seen.
Very suspicious sentence. Amplified is used twice.
Yes, that's right. Yes. It's also interesting how it says much of which may well be. And what is may well be?
Why would you mention may well be if is it or isn't?
Exactly. And then the involvement of state actors. What is a state actor? I mean, who's the state actor? He refused to single out a particular state responsible, but said that disinformation can be linked to state-backed activity. Can be, but also can't be. You know, who knows? And said that the NCA and the Department of Science, Innovation and Technology were looking at it.
Well, why are we talking about it if they're looking at it?
That's the wonderful thing. The media are so happy to be a transmission belt for this state propaganda. None of them ever asked the question, exactly that question. So why have you thrown around these insinuations when you were basically just looking at it? You don't have any evidence for this. Tech giants will be forced to ban fake news under Labour plans.
We have the tools.
Fake news. Firms could be required to suppress posts even if they are not illegal.
Okay, here you go. Oh, wow. Cheerleading illegal behavior on part of on the behalf of the state. Here we are. We've
That's right.
arrived, everyone.
Exactly. Even if they're not illegal.
Even if it isn't illegal, it is illegal.
That's right. Could be required. Is that good? Is it could be required? Oh, that's good. Well, yeah. I mean, it's the government, and that's the whole point. The government can coerce you, and it could be required. And the media thought, yeah, nice, nice. Tell us more what you're going to require them to do. Said tech companies will be forced to ban fake news from their platforms under plans being considered by the government in the wake of the riots. So Keir Starmer suggested that the government would review social media law as part of efforts to prevent further disorder.
Oh, yeah, I bet you. Yeah.
He's reviewing. Good man. And then it could mean that firms are required to remove or suppress posts spreading fake news about asylum seekers or other topics such as self-harm, even if they do not meet the threshold for illegality. That's very interesting because they've already said all these things are illegal, like incitement to violence, incitement to riots. So now they say they don't even meet the threshold of illegality. So they're not even inciting anyone to do anything. They're just simply saying things that Keir Starmer doesn't like. We should go on calling him Keir.
I don't like that. There's something wrong with doing that. Okay, yeah, I'll call him, Mr.
No, I was being facetious. Keir.
What do I have to get on my knee when I say that?
Yes, you do.
Do I
Yeah.
have to genuflect,
Because he was knighted, and he had to get on his knee when he had the sword put on his shoulders. He was knighted.
and we have to get on the knee.
Yeah. Keir.
I really want to know what this threshold is.
No, exactly. However, critics have said that the proposals expose the sinister and authoritarian side of Sir Keir's Labour Party, driving a coach and horses through the principle of free speech. You think? Some critics have said this. Free speech. And then he goes on, the potential crackdown on tech companies would likely form part of a review of the Online Safety Act. That's the recently passed in the UK.
It'll be written in the original German first.
That's right, exactly, which was passed last year. The act requires platforms to take robust action. Oh, I love, it's our favorite word, robust. Robust action against illegal content and activity, and will be implemented gradually.
What is robust action? What is that? Okay, leave aside robust, which is one of our favorite words because it's basically meaningless. But what action? What do you mean by that? What legal action?
Well, that's a very interesting question because one assumes robust would be, yes, throw it off online. Okay, you basically force companies to take them down. Then presumably you force them to take the author of the fake news, force them off your platform. Then presumably the next step would be prosecution, and after that imprisonment. I mean, I'm assuming that's the logic of robust action.
Well, the fact that they just did not enumerate what you just said, it's just to intimidate you.
Exactly. But the thing is, again, we go back to the point that these are platforms. And they're not under, they shouldn't be under any obligation to monitor every single thing people are saying. They're platforms. It really is like
platforms are like the telephone.
Exactly, the telephone. That's right. It's like saying, well, I don't like this person's politics, so he shouldn't have a telephone line, so that way, prevent him from being able to use a telephone. I mean, that's all it is. I mean, it's like a telephone. And it goes back to the point about free speech. I mean, the whole point of free speech is that it's free speech, unpopular speech. That's the speech that needs protection. It's free speech for things that people which you don't like, which people find obnoxious, unpleasant, and nasty. I mean, somebody who says I'm against racism, that doesn't need protection. Popular speech doesn't need protection. And then a legal but harmful clause requires firms to take down or restrict the visibility of content deemed to be dangerous, but not against the law. What does any of that mean?
That's a total slippery slope right there, right there.
Legal but harmful. Oh, that's good. So
Well, this is preventative justice?
right,
Yeah,
preventative.
preventative. Yeah.
To take down or restrict the visibility of content deemed to be dangerous, but not against the law. Who deems something to be dangerous? Who deems something to be harmful? Who is this person who's making these decisions? Was included in the original bill brought forward by the Tories in 2022. Well, of course, the Tories, they brought in, so they facilitated this smooth transition to Starmer. However, it was removed because of free speech concerns, with critics warning it could allow a future Labour government to censor controversial material. So obviously they're going to bring this back in, because
they can censor controversial material.
exactly. Exactly. That's the exact controversial. It has to be censored. Kemi Badenoch, a candidate for the Tory leadership, previously described it as legislating for hurt feelings. The clause was replaced with a new triple shield of protections, including a duty on firms to give users the tools to filter out content that they do not want to see. But now we're going to have basically the government deciding what you do not want to see.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the things I like Twitter. People they scramble the image. I mean, if you want to you really want to see a beheaded baby, you go right ahead. I never do. I like that. I like that platforms do that because I'm not interested in seeing that kind of thing.
Right. Then the former Tory government originally said legal but harmful could apply to content posing a threat to public health, such as misinformation. So exactly, but this is why that whole COVID thing was was really, it just blazed the trail for this tyranny.
They predicted this. This was a dry run.
Dry run, exactly. So we can do this
experiment.
That's right. We can do this on any issue, because the people are spreading misinformation. Of course, the misinformation was actually, turns out to be correct information. All the people who were actually saying stuff about COVID that was banned was actually correct, whereas the people who were actually putting out all the nonsense have proven to be wrong, such as, hey, if you take the vaccine, you cannot get COVID. Also, all of those which were sanctioned, well, that's right. You get the vaccine and you can never get COVID. That was permissible, but it was wholly wrong. It comes as police said that they would expect to keep making arrests for months in the wake of the riots, with more people jailed on Friday. Well, I'm so happy they're going to be making arrests.
Well, this is a vast RICO operation too.
Exactly. Also, it's very interesting because it means that they're making arrests. I mean, how are they going to? I mean, there weren't that many riots, and so whom are they going to arrest? They're going after all the people posting. Or they're going after all the, hey, they come knocking on your door and say, you posted this on Facebook, you're under arrest. Meanwhile, a British businesswoman accused of being one of the first people to post the wrong name for the Southport attacker has said that it has destroyed her. We talked about this woman. Bernadette Sporforth, 55, wrongly suggested on X that the suspect in the killing of the 3 girls outside a Taylor Swift dance class was an asylum seeker who had recently arrived in the UK by boat. And that's the one who's being arrested and imprisoned.
Well, I mean, sure, okay. Saying someone arrived on recently on a boat, that's the trigger here. Okay, I mean that's what really bothers me. Okay, they could be a mistake, but you can even if it was someone that just got off a boat, you cannot criticize those people. That's the implicit message you're always being told. Okay, well maybe it's a fact, maybe it's not a fact. Okay, but it is bundled up into some kind of sacred, sensitive area which you cannot talk about. Okay?
That's right. The claim, which was promoted across social media by far-right accounts and Russian bots, already they're putting in the Russian bots. Exactly. You haven't established anything, but already they put that in as if. Notice how, again, the media just present, this is fake news. You haven't established, we looked at that other story, it said it hasn't been established that there were any Russian bots involved, but they put it in as if somehow this is established. But apparently that's okay. You can put this kind of fake news out, and that's fine.
The Skripal of scandal, the Russians behind it, but we're investigating.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. Whatever happened to the Skripals?
Whatever happened? I guess we file that under the Nord Stream.
That's right. Yeah. When was that? 2018. So 6 years now. So, they've been blamed for sparking the riots spread across the country. Mrs. Spoforth, who lives in a £1 million farmhouse just outside of Chester, has denied that she was the first to post the message, saying that she simply made the mistake of repeating it. People who encourage the riots on social media have been jailed as part of the swift response by the justice system to the disorder. So you notice how the media, this is mainstream media, swift. They like the idea of a swift justice.
Yeah, but George, isn't it really a tell that this is the only thing they can do swiftly?
Right. Yes. No. Exactly.
I mean, criminal justice, that seems to be their strong suit. Okay.
That's right.
Again, all of these paragraphs, all these slides we go through do not talk about why we got to this situation.
Exactly. And
it's swift about putting 55-year-old women in jail.
That's very swift. But also the interesting thing is that what government can do swiftly and what it can't. It throws up its hands. No, we just can't stop the illegals coming in. No, we just can't do it. There's nothing we can do. We can't. We have no control of our borders. But apparently you can round people up and throw them in prison. There's no hesitations there. Notice how also they put in this £1 million farmhouse.
Yeah.
How do they know it's it's worth $1 million? Is it
why is it
with the real estate the firm that it's £1 million?
Why is it germane? Why is it in the article?
Exactly. None, other than getting people to hate her. I mean, the paper just seems to, hey, she lives in a £1 million farmhouse, so we're supposed to hate her.
Maybe she's also disabled and on a pension. Okay.
Right. Exactly. And again, you have to sort of keep in mind when they say something £1 million, let's assume it's even true. She probably inherited it from her parents. It's maybe it's been in the family for a long time. Well, given the way property prices have gone up in the UK in recent decades, so it's £1 million. But that doesn't. It suggests, well, she spent £1 million buying it. No, she probably inherited it from her parents, and it's now worth £1 million.
Probably it's where she lives, George.
Exactly, it's where she lives, and probably has lived there all her life.
Usually, when they have a sentence splice like that, they'd say a primary school teacher, a 13-year stand. They usually tell you who the profession of the person is. They usually very rarely talk about your level of perceived level of wealth. It's a very odd.
Very, very odd. Also, and this is where it gets a little bit more creepy, whether there's some doxing involved here. They're saying £1 million farmhouse just outside of Chester. So again, people can start figure out. Well,
there's a lot of them, right, George?
Yeah. So just outside of Chester, that's not a big town. There can't be that many farmhouses just outside of Chester. So there's, this is a very sly way, I think, of disclosing where she lives. Again, a woman has also been arrested on suspicion of publishing written material to stir up racial hatred and false communications. The latter is a crime under the Online Safety Act, which makes it illegal to convey information that a person knows to be false if they intend the message to cause non-trivial psychological or physical harm.
All easily defined, right? Non-trivial psychological, okay.
Right.
What do you mean to stir up?
And again, how do you know that this person knows it to be false? I mean, they always put that in. Oh, knowingly false. I don't know. Well, how do you know? I mean, this person may be just making a mistake, but believes it to be true. If they intend the message, how do you know that's the intent? I mean, again, how do you establish that that's they intend the message to cause non-trivial what is non-trivial psychological harm? If you, I guess, if you say something mean to someone, I guess that's non-trivial psychological harm to a likely audience. This is very, very creepy, this online safety gag, and was obvious that it was creepy. I mean, even when the parliament was debating it, this was obviously a very creepy enterprise, pushed by Liz Truss, among others, who then reinvented herself as a populist. I'll show people that I'm a populist. It means people who knowingly spread harmful fake news online can be prosecuted or punished, but it is more difficult to crack down on the platforms that host the content. So again, notice how the reporter is lamenting, God, it's difficult to crack down on the platforms. What are we going to do? Mr. So Keir, can we do something about the online
What
platforms?
they want to do is they want to nationalize them and turn them into public utilities in which they have a board of governors that will run it. Okay.
Yes,
That
right,
means, what does that all mean, everyone? That means the legacy media is saved
right,
because online media reflect what the legacy media said. They
right.
want to roll back 40 years of information emancipation, if we can put it that way. They want to wrap this thing up. The
Right.
COVID was a good test run. This whole
Yes,
Ukraine fiasco is
yes,
also that.
yeah,
And this is a gift for
yeah,
the people that,
exactly. It was a gift
gift,
because
gift.
Starmer always was going to do this. I mean, we know what the kind of creature he was. You know, he's director of public prosecutions. I mean, that's who he was. He always wanted to do this, and this was his opportunity. You know, his Reichstag fire moment that he can just bring it in within 1 month of assuming the
One
premiership.
has to assume that in his office, he probably has a picture of a Beria. Okay.
It does look like that. The prospect of the legal but harmful clause being brought back will raise questions about who will decide what is classed as harmful and how it will be policed. Yeah, it might. And then
The deciders try to sound smart.
that's right. And then here's another one: schools to wage war on quote putrid unquote putrid. That's a good word. Putrid fake news in anti-extremism crackdown. So putrid. So you're using the word putrid while you're cracking down on extremism. I mean, that's a pretty extreme word to use. And anti-extremism. You know, you're fighting extremism. I hate extremism.
What is that?
Yeah, exactly. Pupils will be taught to spot conspiracy theories in curriculum revamp after riot sweep UK. Can you imagine? Pupils will be taught to spot conspiracy theories. So you're already putting forward a conspiracy theory here that there is a far right, there's an organized far right that kind of is centralized and is doing all these things with this tight organizer. That's a conspiracy theory, that rather than that these are basically spontaneous outbursts of anger and frustration. But no. So to present that this is somehow organized, conspiracy theories.
Pupils
You
will
must
be
spot a conspiracy theory.
pupils will be taught to spot conspiracy theories. What the hell does that mean?
Exactly.
That is terrifying.
It is terrifying. And look, I'm looking at mainstream media. These are all stories from the mainstream media. This is from the
All
Telegraph.
these stories is that don't question authority. That's
Yeah,
all. That's the bottom
that's
line,
right.
always.
That's right. Children will be taught how to spot extremist content and fake news online in a revamp of the curriculum following last week's riots. Schools will use lessons such as English, ICT, and maths to arm pupils against putrid conspiracy theories, the education secretary has said.
How many pupils know that word?
Not many. I kind of remember it from my youth, putrid, but I haven't heard it too many times. But it's one of the, it's quite a, it's very nasty. I mean, the putrid.
Well, you don't want to be called it, that's for sure.
Right, but note now she said they will use lessons such as English, ICT, and maths to arm pupils against what does it mean arming them? How are you going to arm them against putrid conspiracy theories? Bridget Phillipson told the Telegraph that pupils as young as 5 would be given to the critical thinking skills to identify misinformation online under the new plan. This is the education secretary talking here. Let's read that again. Pupils as young as 5 would be given the critical thinking skills to identify misinformation online under the new plan.
Well, it's quite, for me, it's quite ironic is that all state-run education in the West is to avoid having any critical thinking about anything.
Exactly. You're absolutely right. So when they say we're going to give you critical thinking skills, it means exact opposite. We're going to force you to accept the state-run propaganda as true, and the one thing you're not going to get is critical thinking skills. It's the, what was the name of that New Zealand Prime Minister, the Jessica Ardern, who declared, "I am the truth" at the height of COVID. So that this is, we will provide, but children as young as 5. This is quite. I don't think even in the Soviet Union they were quite as drastic as going for children as young as 5.
You know who backs this up? Joe Biden does. Because when there are 5-year-olds around, yeah. Okay. Talk about putrid.
That's right, exactly. The intervention came as a 13-year-old boy was charged on Saturday with violent disorder in Manchester following trouble in the area. Now, I'm puzzled about that because I always thought that 13-year-olds, they usually don't go for they don't go to adult courts. I mean, these are kind of basically of children, basically for youth underage courts, and they're not, basically they're not charged as adults if they're that young. So it's so strange they say 13-year-old boy was charged with violent disorder. And then it says, Ms. Phillipson said, "It's more important than ever that we give young people the knowledge and skills to be able to challenge what they see online." Again, the opposite. Young people, so that they don't challenge anything that we tell them to look at. That's why our curriculum review will develop plans to embed critical skills in lessons to arm our children against the disinformation, fake news, and putrid conspiracy theories awash on social media. I wonder if they're going to have critical thinking, like about Russia and Ukraine. I mean, in other words, well, let's re-examine the history of what happened in Ukraine. I don't think that there's going to be any critical thinking.
Are they going to give them the critical thinking skills to decipher the propaganda of the BBC?
I don't think so. Yes, the BBC. That's right. Yes, the critical thinking. What was it then? Tony Blair, with his dodgy dossier and everything, which they presented as somehow evidence that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. Where was the critical thinking there? Or the critical thinking, when they started bombing Syria, and so on. I mean, it's amazing how little critical thinking went into all of that. Our renewed curriculum will always put high and rising standards in core subject first. Oh, of course, that's not negotiable. But alongside this, we will create a broad, knowledge-rich curriculum that widens access to cultural subjects and gives pupils the knowledge and skills they need to thrive at work and throughout life. What did that word salad mean?
I mean, that's just obviously garbage. Why don't you just teach them how to read, write, and arithmetic?
Exactly. And then we have remove harmful content about riots now. Social media firms told. Ofcom. Oh, Ofcom, that's your favorite.
My favorite people, right?
Ofcom Group Director for Online Safety calls for tougher action to stop posts that stir up hatred and provoke violence. And then social media companies should act now to remove harmful online content about the UK rioting. The regulator Ofcom has said the government has accused social media companies of fueling the protests, which were prompted by false claims, blah, blah. How are social media companies are in any way fueling anything?
Anything.
I mean, you're accusing them of something they're not doing. You're fueling, they're not fueling anything. Riots have since blah, 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 leading to more than 400 arrests during 10 days of civil order. Police are braced for more than 100 far-right demonstrations of 30 counter-protests on Wednesday, which of course was a lie. There were no riot for far-right demonstrations on Wednesday. This was a deliberate misinformation that the government put out. We're expecting 100 far-right demonstrations. There wasn't a single one. But he did it in order to create this terror about these far-right protests, which didn't exist. And then all there were these counter-protests. Only the counter-protesters showed up. There were no far-right protests on Wednesday or Thursday.
Also.
Right. And then Jill Whitehead, Ofcom's Group Director for Online Safety. I just love that expression, online safety. You know, it's got to be safe. Called for tougher action to stop posts that stir up hatred and provoke violence. She said, in a few months, new safety duties under the Online Safety Act will be in place, but you can act now. There's no need to wait to make your sites and apps safer for users. Safer. That's just, you know, it's.
Yeah, well, what they want people to do is not to go online. That's it.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Because knowingly or unwillingly, irrespective of your intent, you could break the law. So you better be careful.
Exactly. You could break the law because, you know, first of all, if you retweet, you could break the law, but you could probably break the law if you don't report something. You know, let's say you see a post that is deemed hate speech and you don't report it. Well, then, you know, you could be liable. I mean, they're already saying that, you know, if you're there at a demonstration and you're just observing, you're not taking part, you could be liable. They could absolutely prosecute you if you're just standing around watching. Under Ofcom regulations that predate the Online Safety Act, UK-based violence video sharing platforms must protect their users from videos likely to incite violence or hatred.
Whatever that means.
We therefore expect video sharing platforms to ensure their systems and processes are effective in anticipating and responding to the potential spread of harmful video material stemming from recent events. But they're clearly threatening.
Preemptive censor.
Preemptive, exactly. They're issuing this threat against everybody, against Facebook, against YouTube. You better start checking very carefully about your content, or we're going to come after you. And then here we have, all right, Angela Rayner, the Deputy Prime Minister, warned people not to spread online misinformation. Speaking on Wednesday, she said all social media companies have responsibilities as well to deal with fake news. We've seen a lot of fake information being shared on online platforms. We've seen a lot of hate.
Yeah, well, we've seen a lot of fake information on immigration. We've seen a lot of, and as a result of that fake information, it is generated in some people's minds hatred. Where is the root?
That's right. That's right. And I think that was the point that Farage made, which is that, well, whenever you get these mass stabbings, immediately they come along and say, "Oh, this wasn't political. There was no political motive." And so they say you're deliberately lying and misleading the public. Oh, it was not political. So this guy just simply started hacking someone, on London Bridge, but it wasn't political. No.
I mean, George, some people just like to stab. Okay?
They just like to stab. No,
and don't be judgmental.
That's right, exactly. Just like, he just came out, started hacking somebody. Not political. Nope, no politics involved here. And again, as with this guy who this attack, a horrific attack on a number of children, hey, this is just some random guy, a Welshman, born in Cardiff. And again, no one's asking, why did he do it? What was his motive? They say, oh, he wasn't a Muslim. How do they know that he didn't convert to Islam?
Who cares?
Like, who cares? Who cares? Well, that's it. Nothing to see here, folks. That's it. Gone. People have a responsibility to not conduct themselves and to amplify that, but actually to deal with the online misinformation, but also not to spread the hate. We don't want to see that, whether that's online or offline.
See what neoliberal ideology has done? Look at that.
Right.
It doesn't mean anything.
That's right.
It's garbage.
That's right. But it is kind of, you're absolutely, it is the neoliberal agenda, which is, dissent will be crushed. I mean, you basically say, well, those who don't like policies on immigration, on crime, foreign policy, well, we're just going to deem you as a purveyor of hate speech. Or a purveyor of Russian propaganda, since we already associate Russian propaganda with violence and hate speech. So if you're a purveyor of Putin's poisonous propaganda, you're obviously liable for criminal prosecution.
Serve it.
Yeah. In Birmingham, hundreds of Muslims, including blah, blah, and then the science secretary has held one-on-one talks with executives from X, formerly Twitter, YouTube, Meta, Google, and TikTok, about so already he's having one-on-one talks about the spread of hateful misinformation and incitement. So this is a government minister who's already having talks.
Why doesn't this government minister talk to the people about it?
No, that's the thing. Yeah. And that was the thing when Keir Starmer, he went there and he laid flowers the day after this murders. He had nothing to say. He just laid the flowers and then went off, but it said nothing to the community. He just said nothing there, like, hey, I understand your pain. I understand that you're really concerned about, about all this, the immigration levels, the crime associated with immigration. We're going to try and do something about it. He could have said all of that. He didn't say it. He just went off without saying anything, and then just started lashing out against the far right. And then he's wondering why he's hated so much. So this is Gavin Stevens, chair of the National Police Chiefs Council. Unchecked misinformation harms us all. Let's delete more than we share. Let's delete. Why would we delete things? Far-right protesters incited violence online and stirred up hatred after Southport attack. So then he goes on. In the past few days, we started to see less violence, but the investigations to bring those involved to justice are only just getting started. They're only just getting started. This is just yesterday. So only getting started. So, boy, there's got a lot of people are going to be arrested. I hope that the message is clear by now. If you have joined the violent disorder seen on our streets, there will be a knock at your door. I love that. This is a policeman talking. There will be a knock at your door. In a swift sequence of events that we've seen happening in all corners of the country, you're likely to be held in custody until you appear before court, where a significant prison sentence awaits. But again,
very ghoulish.
Yes. the beloved British police. A significant prison sentence awaits. Offenders are being arrested every day as police sift through images and videos, run them against our databases, and share them with the public who are coming forward to name people. Oh, goody! Got the snitches are out tonight.
Snitch.
Yes. The arrests and charges are reaching the hundreds, and that will undoubtedly rise significantly as our investigations progress.
Meanwhile, rampant city crime will continue.
Yes, exactly. You see, what's happening now is because Britain hasn't built any prisons for some time, they're having to release prisoners to make way for all the people, these rioters. So they're releasing murderers, rapists, pedophiles in order to lock up online influencers. That's you've got your priorities right there. Whether throwing a brick or inciting a hatred online. Well, you know, there's a kind of a difference between the two. It has left a trace. Investigators will be tenacious in unmasking people and getting justice for communities that have been damaged and left fearful.
All communities?
No, exactly. All communities. No. You know, they're very, very selective. And then what has struck me during the disorder is how vulnerable we all are to disinformation and vile hatred online. We have spoken in recent years about how to keep our children safe online, and what we have learned this week is that left unchecked, misinformation, harmful posts can undermine all our safety. Left unchecked. And so we intend to check.
It's always interesting. They always throw in the children. It's always
that. That's the crucial thing. That's the crucial ingredient here, because it confuses people.
It didn't save the 3 girls that were stabbed.
That's right? Exactly. That's, which itself is fascinating, that they don't care about. You know, so we're putting police, you know, to protect all mosques in the UK. Well, that's great. What about protecting young children who go to dance classes? Will you be putting police protection against to protect dance classes, or, you know, anyway, children's play centers? No, you rush to say, oh, we have to protect the mosques, but apparently everyone else will continue to go unprotected. And so, but the children part is crucial, because it confuses people. They say, oh yeah, we need to protect children, but that's not what you're saying here. You're basically saying we need to protect the state from harmful messages, and they do it in the name of the children. How we behave online is not abstract. It has real world consequences. Perhaps we should be deleting a lot more than we share.
Does that even mean anyway?
Yeah, well, exactly. What does it mean, deleting? What you know?
Okay, can you delete someone's tweet on Twitter?
You can't. That's the point. You can't delete. You can only delete your own tweet. You can't delete someone else's tweet. Interrupting the messaging has been an important part of the plan this week. We are grateful to those platforms that have removed or filtered harmful content. We are also grateful to everyone who has dissuaded someone from getting involved or helped communities recover after attacks. Again, forget about the Southport community. That's gone. I mean, you know how they feel about these 3 children dead. And then I also think those that incited violence online will not have expected an arrest to follow just a few days after the post that took them a few seconds. Note this malicious, sadistic tone here. I think those that incited violence online will not have expected an arrest. They will not have expected a knock on the door. Knock, knock, knock. You're under arrest. While justice continues, we will maintain strong and robust. How is this justice? When you're rushing people to trial, that is injustice. We will maintain strong and robust policing to help our communities recover. Policing will not let the hate and disorder prevent people from enjoying the return of many sporting fixtures and community events this weekend. In other words, let's make sure people are stupid, have nothing else going on in their heads other than sporting fixtures. That's it. That's your lot. Focus on the stupid football, which is what you should be doing with your time, and not really think about all sorts of other unpleasant issues. Leave it to the grown-ups. And then the number of children arrested for terror-related offenses has surged. Here's why. Social media misinformation blamed as younger and younger people become involved in extremism. Oh, social media disinformation.
Extremism. Okay.
Yeah. And the number of minors arrested for terror-related offenses has quadrupled in less than 2 decades to a record high. A total of 42 under 18s were arrested for terrorism-related activities in 2023 under the Terrorism Act of 2000. This is a 5-fold increase from the average of 7.3 a year. And then it goes on, schools are now referring people to counterterrorism agencies. More than a quarter of those charged by police for rioting over the past fortnight have been under 21, with children as young as 14 convicted. Here, as in terror referrals, the vast majority are boys, of course. Boys are always, you know. So we're on to the toxic masculinity angles. And then experts say vulnerable boys who feel left behind are being caught out by what appears to be a worsening spread of misinformation online. And then we have the usual institute.
Yeah, well, what about just the breakdown of the family, of local community?
Yes.
They never mentioned.
No, they never, exactly.
The maladies of their decades-long policies against the most vulnerable people in their own society.
That's
they
right.
never talk about
No,
that.
they never talk about that, because it's much better just to focus on something like toxic masculinity. You know, oh, boys, boys just feel very inadequate. So we have to address the problem of boys. We have to put them in re-education camps and, just exactly make it about boys, but not about the deprived neighborhoods. This is really, based how deprived. And then again, you got to, if you have no money for doing something about these deprived neighborhoods, how come there's money for Ukraine? Why is there money for that? I mean, apparently there's you can't rebuild societies, but you can send money to Ukraine.
Well, they're more interested in nation building abroad than nation.
Exactly, nation building. Oh yeah, we can't do anything. We're helpless. We just can't. And then they have this Institute for Strategic Dialogue, one of these things always, one of fact checkers, always on hand, lavishly funded by governments, the EU and so on, and dedicated to combating polarization and disinformation.
Here we go. We have this Institute for Strategic Dialogue.
That's it, exactly.
A global nonprofit.
That's right.
And this is the quote. Over the past 7 or 8 years, we've seen younger and younger people get involved in far-right extremism and terrorism. If you can get the work, I guess why not? Okay, I mean, how much money was Hannah Rose paid to say?
That's a lot. It's lavishly funded. Just look at if you go to their site and just all the donors, this is very well funded. And then Miss Rose points out the effective decentralization of extremism made possible by the internet and so on. And then children increasingly have that agency and capacity to engage with a dangerous far-right movement from the grassroots. But what's interesting, and then we have Ofcom and so far-right, is that they present, there's a chart here about, again, it's all about the far-right. And then we look at this, these extremism, and they say share of attributed ideologies for detention under the Terrorism Act, and the far-right ideologies behind a growing share of terror detentions. Yeah, but it's still a tiny minority. I mean, it's still Islamist, according to this, is something like 70%. And the far right, I mean, if I'm just looking at this chart, is, I guess, let's say it's about 15 to 20%. So you've written this whole article. It's all about the dangers of the far right. And if you just look at their own statistics, well, why aren't you talking about that? It's the Islamist thing, which is what people are concerned about. It's the overwhelming majority of these terror detentions are about that. But instead, they go to these Institute for Strategic Dialogue and Center for Countering Digital Hate. Oh, far right, that's the real problem. But people know that simply isn't true. But and that's, after all, massaging these statistics. These are official statistics, so they want to beef up as much as possible the incidence of far-right terrorism, But even according to their own statistics, the overwhelming, by far the majority, is things that are associated with Islamism. Anyway, that's just a selection of you know, these stories. But clearly, Starmer is very much in the business of introducing a police state that the
But it's
media are
interesting.
happy to act
Yeah,
as handmaidens.
I mean, even these articles, and I'm sure, and this is just a, potpourri, and there's so
Yes.
much more out there, but it looks like, they've been working on this for a while. They
That's
found
right.
an opportunity
Yeah.
to highlight it and to push it through and make people accept it.
Right.
And so censorship is good.
Yep.
Control of social media platforms, they have to be under the control of some state authority. Intimidation there, maybe you shouldn't post anything,
That's
okay?
right. That's
I
right.
mean, but it looks like they've been working
Right.
diligently about this. Oh, well, look, and maybe it's a little too aggressive. Let's wait, and they found
That's,
an opportunity. That's what
that's
they
right.
did with COVID.
That's right.
How many of the COVID restrictions outside of like mask and sheltering in place and all that? A lot of those restrictions are still there. I mean, this is just
Right.
incremental, and this is
Right.
a horrific situation they've taken. This is always an opportunity. When a crisis comes for these people, it's an opportunity.
Exactly. It's an opportunity. COVID was the dry run. It's like they were ready to move. I mean, they moved so quickly, with the lockdowns, and again, there was never any scientific basis for that. It's like you're locking down entire countries, irrespective of their effect on economy, the effect on people's lives, and all the damage is going to cause to people being forced to stay home all the time. They did it because it allowed governments to show their power. Hey, we can do this. We can coerce the public, force them to stay home. Of course, it doesn't apply to us, and we knew all along that they were cheating, and that the restrictions, they got around the restrictions in all sorts of ways. But it's like they were ready to go, with a pandemic, and then surprise, surprise, every single thing they told us was incorrect. But all the other things, I mean, it's like, with the stuff they talk about, the fossil fuels and so on, that's all rubbish. That's all based on a very, very, very dubious science. But it's enough to coerce the public. Harris talks about this climate existential crisis facing us. I mean, that's it. You just, once you're in power and say climate is an existential crisis, well, look at all the things you need to do in order to address an existential crisis.
Yeah, and they'll again, okay, COVID, and then this crisis of misinformation. What is that? Okay, no,
Exactly.
it's about social control. That's what this is all
Exactly.
about.
Exactly. That's right.
Because
And
most of the misinformation that people consume is state sponsored, state supported, state generated.
right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Because that's if you look at these who has the biggest followings, it's nearly always official accounts. It's official accounts. That's where you get most of the information. So essentially, they're telling people, yes, don't post. Also, don't follow any social, in any influencers or anything that might get you into trouble. Just be careful, because we're monitored, we're trolling. Right? They've said we're trolling through people's posts, and then if we find out that you're a follower of so and so that we don't like, well, as the policeman said so charmingly, you're going to get a knock on your door. Imagine saying that you're going to get a knock on your door.
Well, also, George, I mean, to kind of wrap this up here, the summary justice is
Yes.
really amazing. You're
Exactly.
going to deprive someone of their liberty.
Right.
You're basically going to get it done through, where the prosecutor, the judge, and the defense are all in agreement, except for the defendant.
That's exactly. It cannot be any kind of summary justice is no justice, because there has to be a time for some kind of deliberation so that a defendant can get some kind of legal advice. You need legal advice as to the implication, because if you're rushed through to prison, your life is ruined. That's it. You're done. I mean, so it's not just, well, if you plead guilty, we're going to go easy on you. That's not, that's not enough. Your life is ruined. It's going to be there. It's on your record. And try getting a job after that. And these are people who got their lives ahead of them. Well, forget that. You've now have
Well,
this
if they're
criminal
children,
conviction.
if they're children.
Yeah, that's their children. Yeah. And that in itself is very, very creepy, because
I thought the
children
only
are always dealt
Israelis,
separately. They're not treated like adults. You don't just rush
I thought
children through
I thought
courts.
only Israelis did that. Okay.
Yeah,
Now,
exactly. Yeah, it's a special process for children, that they cannot be treated like adults. And oh, these children have been convicted. How do you convict children?
but George, like, again, this really heavy-handed approach, it backfires. It creates alienation.
Yep.
People feel justified and have being a resistor to being a dissident. It ends up being a self-fulfilling prophecy. See, I told you. See, they were after us. I told you.
Yep.
Okay, they don't care about us.
Right.
It's self-reinforcing.
Yep.
Okay, this is no way to approach this at all. What you do is, the neoliberalism is like a hammer, and all they see are nails.
Yep, that's right. That's right. Because what they're doing here is essentially they know their enemy. The enemy is their own indigenous population, who basically feel that their governments really don't give a damn. I was going to use a worse term than that. They just don't give a damn about them. And that's what they know. They have a feeling that their governments really despise them. They regard them as simply just useless, pointless excess baggage. And they're the enemy. They're the opposition. And so therefore the government comes down on them with a fury that says that, we are going to teach you not to resist us. We're going to make our decisions on, anything about the economy, decisions on immigration. And if you dare to express your opposition, then, you're going to get a knock on your door. And I think the public knows it. I mean, this is, they express themselves, often foolishly, but they sense that Starmer and his people really despise them.
It also, using that, a knock on the door. I mean, due processes come to an end.
Right.
If you can knock on the door, you're going to prison. That's what they're telling you.
You're absolutely right. Exactly. And because exactly, the knock on the door, yeah, okay, well, you can arrest me, but I have rights, and I expect to be able to exercise my rights. But no, but you're absolutely right. That very term, knock on the door, means, yeah, that means you're going straight to prison. We pick you up, and we just dump you in prison, and forget about any early release.
That's putrid. That's putrid.
That's exactly. So that, and in a sense, that's really what's fueling. And it's not just in Britain. I mean, you can see this, the frustration in France, in Germany, and other countries, that is a vast realm of the public feel that their government just despises them. They just, excess baggage. They're in the way. Whether it's the farmers in France, farmers in Germany, truckers, the government just detests them. And that is a kind of the sort of the neoliberalism, that we know what's better for you. It's in our interest to dump migrants on you.
Yeah, and considering their road record of the last 40 years, yeah, I mean, what have they got right? What?
So what have they got right? Well,
in the comments, write one thing they've gotten right. One.
Exactly. So there was Keir Starmer. He becomes prime minister, and his top priority is Ukraine. Well, that's interesting. I mean, you take over as prime minister, and your top priority is Ukraine. and the public sort of senses this, that what kind of a government is this when your top priority is Ukraine? And that's it. And then so when this voice, the inchoate voice, makes itself heard, he reacts with fury. And the police are there to say, yeah, we'll arrest as many people as you'd like, Keir. And the media are clapping their hands with glee. Great, let's crack down on social media.
I don't want to overplay this, but you know, it's kind of the Israelization of Western politics. I mean, any kind of resistance, and we will retaliate with disproportional force and power. Right. Okay? I mean, but that it is apt in many ways. Okay, I mean, this is how dare you challenge the status quo? We will determine what the status quo is, and we'll maybe find a place for you. Maybe we won't. Okay,
that's right. Exactly. Exactly.
All righty. This has been our Sunday wrap. Much to come up this week. I think, George, I think a lot of us were looking for some kind of reaction in the Middle East, and it didn't happen. I think we're going to talk about that tomorrow during our live stream. Maybe it will have happened by then. I don't know. Speaking of live stream, we have a live stream tomorrow, and George is back in the saddle again, solo Tuesday.
3 p.m. Eastern time, and then Monday, tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern time. So please join us and come with all comments, criticisms, ideas, suggestions, opinions, and then think about those ferocious hounds and how upset they are that the tip jar, which is the ostensible raison d'etre, so the raison d'etre says, well, yeah, it says, I'm busy. I've got things to do. If you had a few tips, maybe I'd show up. But
this is royal cushion.
Yeah, I know. Like I said, yeah, I've got I got things to do. I got a life to live. I can't waste my time on the gaggle. But if you do have a few bob in your pocket, whip them out, dunk them into the tip jar. That might put them in a better mood. We're very grateful for all of your help, friendship, and support. The more you're able to donate, the more of these videos we can make, the more we can improve the technology. And above all, we might get some action from the hounds. I wouldn't bet on it. But remember, if you like the gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye.